So that would be my main thing to do. I would go in and look, right, where has spend been wasted? Like, we always start with an audit. And some of the things that we tend to see a lot is that there's a lot of wasted spend on locations. Keywords are constantly triggering, but they're not really converting. Devices, audiences are just spending and not converting. So we'll really zoom out and look at like a 90-day window and be like, you've spent, and it's really awful to say, and it's like, you've spent £1,000 there and you've not generated anything.
Today we have a really, really fantastic human being in Rebecca Pilkington, who's joining us as the head of PPC from Exposure Ninja. The big question is that in today's sort of context where budgets are being cut, everything that we do as marketers is being inspected more and more. How can we make the most out of the spend that we have available to us? And I hope that by the end of today's session, we'll be able to give you a number of answers to that. Before we get started, I want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. This week's featured sponsor is Planable. Now, Planable is the social media scheduling tool that we use day in, day out. In fact, Sarah in the chat is right on top of Planable in terms of manager on the day-to-day. It's the best social media platform that we've found for scheduling, but also gives us a great visibility in terms of the reporting, which they've extended to everyone in the community, quite obviously, to enable you to report on your social media all in one space, which is really, really great, rather than having to go into lots of different spaces. So a big thank you to Planable. They're fantastic. Would recommend checking them out. Finally, I want to say a big thank you to all of our sponsors, because without them, we wouldn't be able to make all this happen. So a big thank you to Wistia, to MailChimp, to Cambridge Marketing College, to Frontify, and indeed to Planable. They're fabulous human beings behind these brands, and again, enable us to bring these sessions to you. So Rebecca, thank you so much for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Not at all. It's a real pleasure. And I just loved the 15 minutes that we had before today's session. So I appreciate you lots and lots. Let's do an overview question because I think it's useful to set the stall when we're having a conversation like this. So would you be able to give me an overview of the paid ad space as you see it in 2026 right now, which is a massive question, but I'm definitely interested in what comes to mind.
Yeah, so much has changed in Google Ads, as like a lot of you will probably know when you're managing ads. The interface looks different. We've got new reporting. We've got all these new different campaign types, AI Max, PMax. A lot of you might see that the tracking's changed massively. And it can feel like quite a scary time in PPC, because it's very much different to the PPC campaigns that I was running 10 years ago to what it is that me and my team do on a day-to-day basis now. But basically, the overview is still the same, that you can make quality data-led decisions with all the data that's in your Google Ads account. So it's all about efficiency and signal quality at the minute, and that's what we'll see when we discuss a few other points as well. But that's the main takeaway from what's changed at the minute. There's still the same principles, but there's nuances.
Nice, I love that, and that in itself is a really great starting place, because I can already tell by the way that you answer your question that we're going to zoom out, which is really, really helpful. You said efficiency and signal quality there, and I'd love to sort of pick up on that and sort of understand what you mean by those things. What do you mean?
Yeah, so Google Ads, paid search, PPC is very well known for cost per click. You don't pay until you click. Keyword bidding, and historically it's been known by what match type you apply to your keyword. So when I first started setting up campaigns and working within PPC, it was very important to, and it still is important to do your keyword research, checking your keyword volumes, making sure you've got the right match type. Whereas in a modern Google Ads account, what we would expect to see is not as much segmentation. So when we get the accounts now that we do audits on and that we look at in client accounts, we see that they're very much over segmented, like back in the day, like 10 years ago. And really what we need to be doing is we need to let go a little bit and let machine learning do what machine learning does best, which is learn. But we need to be very on board with the signals, the data quality that we feed into Google Ads. And we're more of like data analysts pumping. I like to use the analogy, you need to feed the machine. So all
Mhm.
your offline sales data, whether it's e-com or lead gen, sale as a service, SaaS things, you need to make sure you're putting all that information back into Google so that Google's advanced machine learning understands what an actual good quality lead looks like to you. And then we're also content marketers on top of that is completely wild to where it used to be.
I love that. Well, that in itself is fascinating, and like I feel like we should definitely come back to that a bit later because I remember my context on this conversation is I used to be a marketing manager for a PPC agency about 8 years ago, I want to say, and at that time, Broadmatch was starting to get a little bit technical already, but Broadmatch was sort of seen as like the thing that you didn't do. And
Yeah.
so it's really, really interesting to even hear about that switch from someone who spends their time day to day in it. I should also mention that uh, in the introduction, I didn't mention to everyone in the community, but if you have questions, please do drop them into the Q&A feature. I've planned like 10, and that definitely won't take us through the hour. And so please do drop your questions in because Rebecca is fabulous and really appreciate it. So in phrasing your answer just then, you compared it to the beginning of your career, but I'm interested if we sort of narrow it down to the past 12 months. What
Mhm.
are the things which have changed in the past 12 months that sort of people should be paying attention to in this space at the moment?
Yeah, this is a really big foundation that we emphasize with our clients and that I would promote above anything is that you make sure your tracking is working correctly. There's been some really tricky changes within tracking for Google Ads or GA4 as it's now called. We have something that's called consent mode, and now we have version 2 rolled out. And then there's also like server side tracking,
Mhm.
plus the Google tag, which is a different tag
Yeah.
that we have on the website. So it's like there's all these things going on that we need to be able to have in place for Google Ads to work optimally. I would say that is the biggest change. So, like people opting out of cookies, and having to adapt all these different tracking methods just to be able to understand the customer journey. And that is like the main issues that we see when we inherit accounts, that the tracking's just not set up, or people don't understand how to get the most from their tracking, because of course the tracking feeds all these wonderful new campaigns that we've got, like
Mhm.
PMax and AI Max, and even all these amazing automated bidding strategies, and of course broad match, keyword matching. If you don't have that infrastructure in place, none of the things that I've just mentioned will work properly.
Nice. I love that. And so the obvious follow-on question from that on the tracking front is if you inherit a new account and you take them in, what are the 2 to 3 things that you see consistently going wrong? And how do you like? I appreciate there's going to be some technicalities here that will be, very nuanced. But the
Yeah.
2 to 3 things that you sort of see go wrong most of the time that folks watching in, particularly if they don't have that technical background, should be thinking about looking at.
Yeah, so the main thing that we'll see is we've just got the Google tag on the account, and this is very, very common, just the Google tag, which is brilliant. We need the Google tag, we need it for remarketing, but it's just tracking people that opt in to tracking, and it's just tracking what's going on your website. And it's often a primary goal, and that is what we use for the bidding signal within Google Ads. So and that will be the only tracking that's set up. So there'll be an absence of GA4, which obviously can go beyond the cookie opt-in. So if people opt out of cookies, you can still track to a degree, but it anonymizes the data. And Google Ads really prefers to have GA4 tracking as a primary bidding signal because of the additional data that we get. So they're the main things that we see. There'll just be one tracking signal feeding in, and that will be it. Sometimes it's broken, sometimes it's set up correctly, and it's our job just to enhance that tracking and make sure that Google's got all the data that it needs. And then we often see a lot of issues with like consent mode, which is beyond my knowledge. That's more of our dev team that looks into that. But there's things with consent modes that need setting up that's often blocking the tag firing, so you're not getting that signal into your account, and it's just really limiting the data as well. And a lot of people don't know that you can feed your CRM back into Google Ads, which is enhanced conversions for leads that you might see Google talking about quite a lot. They've just released a podcast as well, so that's mentioned there, and in lots of literature that we get emailed. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but basically that's what that is, just feeding live leads back into Google and the deal stage and the monetary value that then enables you to make decisions based on revenue and lead quality, rather than, oh, I've got 1 million leads, so we're doing well, so let's keep pumping money into this campaign. You can drive real data-led decisions with the enhanced conversions for leads, not to be confused with just generic enhanced conversions. The minefield, the tracking it. Like, I have to get my head around it.
But as a first step for folks listening in, even knowing, okay, I need to get my tracking sorted, let me begin that particular conversation and sort of figure out how to do that beyond this hour is really, really helpful for someone versus, okay, I'm going to start running some ads today, et cetera, which is a really great starting point. I guess this is already a high level question. This is like the typical podcast conversation that most people ask at the end, but I'm going to ask it now, which is when it comes to resources and places that you go to learn about this stuff, where do you head? Because presumably, you know, you've said it's a minefield, there's a lot to learn, etc. Where do you get your information from?
Oh, that's a good one, actually. I use a lot of AI. Like, I'm
Okay.
not going to lie. I read what Google pop out, and it's not always like, even for somebody that's well versed in Google, like I've been doing it since I've left university pretty much. It's not always easy to digest what they're saying. And for a while, I was really confused about enhanced conversions, because there's enhanced conversions and then enhanced conversions for leads. I didn't realize they were two separate things. And so I will use like AI to just soundboard off like what's Google trying to tell me, basically. We have Google reps that I work very closely with, the partner reps, and they invite us to webinars and things like that, where we can learn and ask Google questions, and they give us their, like, you know, best case scenario like Google do, and it's like, then you have to go and figure out how it actually works in the real world and how this is valuable for my clients. But a lot of Google webinars and a lot of Google literature, and then just whatever I see that's about. I have so many Google alerts set up for Google Ads, OpenAI ads, and all the other things, and just a mixture, really. And yeah, just
Nice.
not one specific place.
No, I love that, and I'm going to throw up a softball as well, because I know that Exposure Ninja does a bunch of stuff as well, and you've been so well behaved in sort of not plugging it there, but I know that you will put out a lot of stuff as well, which is fantastic. So I mean, I learn from that as well, but it's really great for you to sort of speak about the AI. Just the AI conversations and making sense of that stuff. So thank you for speaking to that. And I could imagine a conversation after today, for example, I need to get my tracking sorted. Where do I start? Then that feels like a really good prompt for
That
folks
is
to.
literally where I started. Like,
Mhm.
AI in the ads and AI aside, use it as a personal assistant and soundboard. It's really great tool to have, and we've got the interface within Google Ads as well to be able to use those AI functionality as well.
Love that. Thank you. Um, there's a question that's come into the Q&A, and there's already so many good questions in the Q&A. So thank you to everyone for popping them in so far. I really, really appreciate it, and we'll definitely make sure to prioritize those. But you've mentioned both PMax and AI Max in so far, and so as a layperson, I'm not familiar in terms of having used them. I've heard the terms bandied around, etc.
Mhm.
But Bethan has asked, I'll put it on screen because we can do this fancy stuff. What are your thoughts on AI Max? Have you seen any results from it yet? And it may be that if you'd be able to speak through PMax and AI Max and what they are first, and then sort of address Bethan's question if possible.
Yeah, of course. So, I might have guiltily done this as well. You might hear like advertisers referring to IMAX as a campaign type. It's not
Mhm.
actually a campaign. It is a search campaign, and it's an option you can toggle on to let your ads reach further. So AI Max is a normal search campaign, and it gives you the option to have all your keywords on broad match.
Mhm.
It gives the option to write your ad copy based on information from your landing pages. Um, there was a really early version of this within Google Ads, and I actually forget what it's called. But there was like a little AI assistant, and it's like, do you want me to write your ads? Do you want me to suggest keywords? And that was the first iteration of it. We had, for some of my clients, we had really good success with that.
Mhm.
And then it got rolled out, and now it's like a main function that you can see within search ads. It will also allow you to match, a little bit like demand gen, match what people are searching with the keywords in the ad copy, and it will suggest the most relevant landing page as well. So that is very important to know, because if you're testing specific PPC landing pages and you toggle AI Max on, they might go to a generic website page, and you need to make sure you're excluding, like, FAQs, privacy policies, and all those kind of things.
Okay.
So that's AI Max in a nutshell. It works really well if you have really high quality landing pages. So if you're not toggling the URL on, or you've got a really well-designed website that has been through so much SEO, technical and content optimization, it's really great for suggesting the keywords. It's really great for matching the keywords to the ad copy, and obviously matching your landing page to your ad copy. But if you have, a landing page or a website that needs work, like conversion rate optimization work, it's not a great landing page, you haven't really done any SEO on it, do not toggle AI Max on, because it's literally reading the data from what you have. So if it's a new page, or one that it's not scoring well organically, stay away from that AI Max toggle.
Love that. That's so helpful. Thank you. Like I think we've got a couple of scenarios coming up in a minute, and we've got one from a more experienced person, but we've also got one from someone at the beginning of the spectrum of that journey. And so, like, I can imagine being in that sort of second situation and sort of toggling it because it's sort of flashing at me, and like that not being a good thing. So that's really, really helpful. So thank you for speaking to that. Um, Actually, just a quick plug for the community as well. We haven't published it yet, but we'll be doing a webinar in a couple of weeks on landing pages and how, like, the things that work in 2026. And so that will be up on the website in a couple of weeks' time as well, just as you mentioned it.
Yeah.
So Rebecca, in that last question, you referenced a number of other channels, and like immediately in my mind, it like pinged off like Rebecca is sort of thinking strategically here,
Yeah.
and sort of thinking of paid search as part of the wider mix
Yeah.
as of activity, which I think is always an important grounding thing whenever we go tactical at TMM. Um, I think even I hold this opinion that like PPC is often an acquisition channel.
Mhm.
How do you think of it so far as using it for brand recognition? And I'd be particularly interested if there's brands you've worked on who have actually primarily used it for a brand recognition rather than acquisition.
Yeah, it's not often that we get somebody wanting to use Google Ads for primarily brand recognition.
Mhm,
It's normally within an overarching strategy that we have some brand recognition element.
mhm,
I think because of the costs associated with it as well, and especially if you're a brand that's using an agency, it can be quite expensive, or even if you're using a freelancer or paying somebody in-house to do it, you've got your person, your people costs, and then you've got to find an ad spend as well. So it's really different to any other channel. So we don't often get people that just want to use it as a brand awareness channel. But that's not to say that we don't run brand awareness strategies on the channel. It generally forms the part of like a full funnel Google Ads strategy. So we actually have utilized this full funnel strategy for a client of ours, Aged Care Bathrooms, which we recently won an award at the Paid Media Awards for. And through
okay.
using like a variety of campaigns such as PMAX and Demand Gen. So PMAX targets all areas of the funnel in one ad. So you have keyword themes. You can layer your audience segment, so you can like target competitor websites, and then you can stack that with keywords and or search themes, not keywords, because we don't have keywords targeting in PMAX. And then you can add demographic and interest targeting on. So Aged Care Bathrooms, they provided bespoke mobility bathrooms for elderly people. So we wanted to target the adult children. So we did some layering like that. And the PMAX campaign was amazing because we could put a video on with one group of budget. So we're not spreading our budget thinly, and it targets the top of the funnel. It
Nice.
also targets the middle of the funnel with the search ads. And then it targets the bottom of the funnel because we added a remarketing list on there as well. So if budget's tight and you have a wealth of data, a PMAX campaign, as long as everything's set up correctly, you've got your
Mhm,
guardrails in place. So you've got a really strong negative keyword list with it. We can now add to PMAX, which we didn't have before. You can still set cost per bids. As long as you've got guardrails in place, you can get a really good success by running a full funnel strategy from top to bottom. And for that client, we generated a 363% increase in conversions just by running those kind of ads for them.
that's really, really interesting. I mean, I guess it is that, you know, it's hard because I don't think it necessarily always exists, but out of any tactic that we have available to us, that sort of uh, last click acquisition, money in, money out sort of situation does sort of exist more in your world than anywhere else, I feel, which is, great. I mean, it's lovely to be able to speak to these case studies as well. So
Yeah.
thank you for speaking to it. Um, I'm mindful that there's a lot more that can be said on that. I'm also mindful of 11 open questions so far, as well as wanting to speak through two scenarios, because I hope that it will cover off some of the questions that come through from the community as well, which, by the way, are phenomenal. So thank you as well to everyone for submitting so far. Um, so the two scenarios that I want to walk through, which will hopefully be useful for folks. The first is about someone who's had a medium large budget, which has been cut. And then the second scenario I'm going to ask about is about someone just getting started and the things that they should be doing. So first question, with someone whose budget's been cut. So I was speaking the other day with someone who's working for a service business, and their budget has shrunk year on year from 250K to 50K. And that's their overall budget. And I'm sure that will be representative of some people in the chat as well, where they've seen their budget cut by quite a lot. If we're guessing that like half of that was on paid ad spend for the sake of argument, how would you start to help people reevaluate their strategy with this sort of like heavily restricted budget in mind compared to where they were before?
Yeah, that's a good one, and it's something that I see a lot of day in, day out. That the people have had their marketing budgets cut, or they want to hire an agency, so they're having to split their marketing budget between management fees and ad spend. So sometimes they come to us with a lower ad spend than what they were spending when they were managing the accounts themselves. So what I'll usually do is I'll just strip the campaigns like right back. So as we've just been talking about, we will use PPC as a high intent acquisition channel, very bottom of the funnel, very high intent, qualified traffic sending to the site. And we use that as a part of a multi-channel strategy, and we let other channels work the top of the funnel a little bit more because they're free, so to speak. They don't have an ad spend, and it's other channels sometimes work better for top of funnel activity. So that would be my main thing to do. I would go in and look, right, where has spend been wasted? Like, we always start with an audit, and some of the things that we tend to see a lot is that there's a lot of wasted spend on locations. Keywords are constantly triggering, but they're not really converting. Devices, audiences are just spending and not converting. So we'll really zoom out and look at like a 90-day window and be like, you've spent, and it's really awful to say, and it's like, you've spent £1,000 there and you've not generated anything. So we'll really then, so this is a bit opposite to what I said at the top of the conversation. We will get a little bit micromanagey. So we
Mhm.
won't be running broad match strategies. We might not be running PMAX or AI Max or anything like that. And we'll really look at what's working. So these keyword themes are working. Let's put all the effort in there. Are these the keywords that deliver the most revenue? Because we're always wanting to drive the most revenue. So we'll usually restructure around these keywords and have tight knit themes, really good copy that matches the keywords, and then a really good landing page so that that journey is seamless, and we can reduce that cost per click, which means your click-through rate's going to get higher, it's cheaper. When they do convert, your CPA is going to be lower as well. So we will look at like kind of an old school strategy for like really tight budgets, like I'm talking like under £1,000, those kind of things.
Mhm.
And we'll make sure that every location that we're targeting is converting. So if we have to drill down to postcodes to the most affluent areas, that's what we'll be doing. Yes, it's very manual, but that is what we'll be doing if that's what we need to achieve success. And then what I spoke about a little bit earlier as well, making sure we're getting all that data that's in your CRM
Mhm.
on paper, on a spreadsheet, however you document it. We need to get that back into Google Ads so we can tell Google Ads, because even though we're on a phrase match or an exact match, we need to tell Google Ads, oh, actually, this customer 3 months later bought this service, and this service is worth 10K. So then we can start to add revenue-based bidding strategies, like even for a lead gen campaign, conversion value strategies and target ROAS strategies to make sure that we're delivering ROI back on your
Mhm.
ads. And then hopefully we've proved enough ROAS for you that you can go and ask your boss for some more money, and then we can build out that. So we kind of work backwards to build the top of the funnel to constantly drip those leads down. And that's the exact approach that we took for aged care bathrooms, which I
Mhm.
previously mentioned. They slashed their ad spend by half, and we kind of reverse engineered it that way. They had a lot of data to play with, which made our life easily. So we had guardrails in place, target CPAs. We knew how much a lead was worth. We had solid negatives. And yeah, just working with your other channels as well. Like I say, we can get so much information from organic, what's working on organic, from the commercial intent keywords, can email support as well. So aged care bathrooms, we struggle to remarket it because of the health in advertising. You can't upload customer lists, although we could connect to their CRM. So any anybody that came in a top of funnel lead for PPC, we retargeted with email campaigns as well. So even though I'm here to talk about PPC, it's really important that every touch point in the journey is like all speaking to each other.
Nice. I love that. And there was a question that came in from Claire, who said, how important is an SEO strategy now to support paid activity and make it efficient? Hopefully that sort of speaks to some of the spirit of it. I don't think we can go into the full extent of the question, Claire, but hopefully that underlines the importance of it. I don't know. You're pausing for breath there, Rebecca. So, like, do you have
Yeah,
a
yeah,
quick answer on that?
it is important, and it's important that you're both conversing back and forward with each other. So we often see when we're looking in Google Analytics that when we see a spike in paid activity, we see a spike in organic activity as well. And we're also looking for what gaps that organic can't reach. So is there a specific keyword that you're wanting to show for? Have you got a service, a new service? We know SEO obviously takes time. Can we propel that forward with PPC and plug the gap there as well? So whether we're working with SEO in with our agency and you've bought PPC and SEO, or whether you've just bought PPC and you manage SEO in-house, we want to be speaking to your SEO team. Any insights that they've got, we want to know about it, and we want to share back as well to make that seamless journey.
Super useful. Thank you, Rebecca. I was going to ask, and maybe this is a quicker question in this circumstance, because I was going to ask about a second scenario with someone just starting out, and it feels like a lot of the examples you've actually given in your last answer probably are going to be repeated to a certain extent, just
Yeah.
in the opposite direction for someone just starting out. I guess one of the things which you have pointed out consistently throughout this conversation, though, is about the quality of the data that you have feeding into things. And that strikes me. So I'll give the scenario that yesterday someone texted me and they said, I've got a mate who's a window cleaner and he wants to start running some ads. He's been burnt in the past, probably because of the inefficiencies that we've pointed out today. But there'll be people on this call watching in today who are like, I don't have the data sets at the moment to sort of feed into a system like this. Like in those scenarios, what are you asking people to do, and where are you pointing them to sort of start their journey and make the most out of it?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways you can feed the information back into Google Ads. So it just depends what your business setup is like. We've worked with companies that everything's on like a Google sheet or an Excel file, and it's very, very manual. We have call reporting in Google Ads as well. And if you link that to Search Console, when you're setting up the conversion call from ads, you can actually listen to the call recordings. Not a lot of people know that that's the thing. So you can assess the quality of the calls there as well. So for example, let's just say we've got a manual database of clients. It could be 100, could be 1,000. What you'd want to do is you'd want to qualify those leads. So you'd have a list for people that you want to exclude and a list for people that are good. These are good customers. This is what they've spent with us. So the bad customers you'd upload as an exclusion list. So you'd add that to the campaign. So when I'm talking about guardrails, this is one of the things that I'm talking about. And you'd set it as like an observation rather than a target. So Google then understands, okay, people that exhibit similar behaviors to these, we don't want to know about them. We'll exclude them from the campaign. And then we have a setting also to import the good leads, and that's called offline conversions. And when you go to, in your audience section, when you go to upload offline conversions, Google has a template for you to fill in anyway. So you download the template and then edit your existing data or copy and paste onto the sheet. And then you upload that. And again, Google will use that as an observation. It'll use it for bidding signals. You can say target these people in remarketing, or you can have it on a PMAX prospecting campaign and be like, this is what good looks like to me. You can even use, because you can add the value in there as well. You don't have to add the value, but the more data you put in, the better it's going to be. And you can use that for like, you know, conversion value bidding strategies, target ROAS bidding strategies. If you have a CRM, makes your life so much easier. So like HubSpot, Salesforce, ActiveCampaign, Klaviyo, even MailChimp, anything like that where all your information's held. Um, Sometimes there's a direct integration into Google Ads, and sometimes we have to use automation software via a third party, so like Zapier and things like that. You can set triggers up to just import that information in at the click of a button, and it's less manual, and it does it automatically. You can then from there create I'm geeking out a little bit here, but then you can create what's called enhanced conversions for leads, which I mentioned earlier. So it'll pull all your revenue value in, and you can actually, when you're selecting, you're setting up campaigns, when you select which goal you want to track, you can select qualified lead, you can select closed lead, converted lead. So although it's like, you know, they've got to fill the form in first, speak to a salesperson, go and do a demo, and then buy, it's optimizing all the way through to that end journey. And it'll, when it finally, you know, in HubSpot, you know, closed deal, paid their invoice, that finally then gets reported into Google Ads. So we've got so much information, and Google just understands what you want from it a little bit more. A lot
Nice.
more,
I mean,
not a little bit.
it is great, you know, and thank you for speaking through all that, because as mentioned earlier, I come to this conversation as a slight layperson, but to even know that all this stuff is possible is beyond my knowledge base, and I'm pretty sure if you didn't go searching for it by yourself, you wouldn't know. So, like, you know, that's really, really appreciated you speaking through it, and as you said earlier on, you know, we can use this as a lifting off point for the conversation as well. So absolutely spectacular. Thank you for speaking through everything, Rebecca. So I had an experience last week, which was I attended 2 webinars, and I came to realize quite how important it really, really is that we prioritize Q&A from the community, because I've always said you're the most important people, but like as a webinar experience, then we should really prioritize those. So we've got 20 questions here, Rebecca, which is good in 19 minutes. I wonder if you're up for quick firing the community questions. Fabulous. So the first question comes in from Catherine. So Catherine says, if you were given the brief, do some PPC, which I'm sure we've had a version of that for insert tactic at any point, from a senior team member, where would you begin? Any easy first steps? And we've mentioned tracking as part of this conversation already, so I wanted to acknowledge that, but I definitely value your experience here.
Yeah, definitely scope it out first. I know we've predominantly spoken about Google Ads, but that might not necessarily be the right platform for you. We've got LinkedIn, Meta, TikTok, Microsoft, all those different platforms. So really you need to understand your customer persona and where they're likely going to be searching or spending downtime, and making sure your ads get in front of them at the optimal time. So before we even start doing keyword research, you need to know your consumer behaviors, what their pain points are, and how you match their pain points, which I'm sure everybody knows. But yeah, that's where I'd first start. And then once I decided which platform they were hanging out on, then that's when I'd do like either keyword research and audience research, make sure there's enough search volume to be able to run ads if it is Google Ads. If there isn't a very high search volume, then I would start testing. So I would look at reverse engineering a budget. So look at the cost per clicks to ascertain how much am I going to have to spend. And it's generally ×5 your cost per click daily budget to be able to, you know, run some tests. And I would run a very broad PMAX, demand gen, AI Max campaign, and I'd be looking at all the data that's coming in and being like, that fits my customer. Let's take that over here and let's build something out from there. And then you might have to look at a strategy. You might have to, if there's no data at all, you might have to test before you actually do a strategy.
Nice. And this is the most layperson of layperson conversation questions, where the only answer can be it depends. But in terms of like a starter budget for folks, if they were sort of investigating in those initial tests, do you have a number in mind when it comes to those things, or is, I mean, I know that the answer is going to be it depends.
It really depends on the cost of your keywords.
Yep.
We have a lot of people in the law industry that we work with, and those keywords can be like $40 a click.
Right.
So you need to make sure that you've got 40 times 5, and that's your daily budget.
Okay.
There's lots of benchmarking tools. You've got your Google Keyword Planner. If you're doing paid social, you can generally use some kind of planner. I know somebody in the channels just referenced LinkedIn, so you can actually build a draft campaign out in LinkedIn, and it gives you the volume of people you can reach given your audience signals that you've popped in. So then you can like, well, okay, maybe I can do 3K and then divide that and work it out that way as well. WordStream is brilliant for benchmarking as well for Google Ads. So look at what the benchmark click-through rate is for your industry. If you've got no data, look at the benchmark cost per click, and you can then work out a budget and go from there. But really, you need to know your audience size and your cost per click. But nothing's too small either. I've worked with like really tiny clients on a really 30-mile radius with a £300 budget a month. So like, even if you think, oh, well, I need thousands, you don't. You just need to be really sensible with where you spend it. Maybe you only advertise one of your products and then get some return on ad spend and branch out a bit further.
That's perfection. Thank you so much for speaking to that. That's really appreciated. Let's take, so Raymond popped this in earlier on when we were speaking about AI in general, and we, we shouldn't, or I don't think anyone wants too many AI conversations in this world. But Raymond says, not really a question, but I think the thing I struggle with now is the fact we used to be really hands-on with our ads, now moving to a system where it's asking us to trust it. It's a fine line of learning when to trust the AI and when to step in ourselves. And I think something really nice happened earlier on when you were speaking about that situation where the budget had been slashed by quite dramatically, and you were like, okay, now's the time to go manual. This is where we sort of really dive in, etc. What are your thoughts in terms of like this AI sort of situation in terms of what's happening in your part of the industry? There's a couple of comments in response to Raymond who's sort of saying, well, the genie's kind of out of the bottle to a certain extent. But I'm curious about where you sit on that and how you start to think about it.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because people that use AI know that it's only as good as the information that's out there, and the information that's on the web can be a bit misleading. People that first started running PMAX ads a couple of years ago absolutely hated them because they got no control. They were very spammy. So this is when I'm talking about tracking and guardrails to make sure that we still want to get high quality qualified traffic to your website, and we really want to make sure that we're giving the ads the best chance as well. So I know personally, I can always feel like I want to be doing something. Like, I'm not doing my job unless I'm doing something, because of how ads used to run. We'd be like, cost per click up and down, setting rules, setting scripts, and now Google has taken all that out of our hands. But it's still very important to have your guardrails in place. So instead of like micromanaging your bids and your budgets and fluctuating them up and down, what you are best off spending your time is making sure that you've got a really good landing page, don't use AI to write your ads, really personalized. Test it, rotate it, see what works best. Sometimes it does work best because it's really relevant to the keyword, but you're not going to stand out. If everybody's using ChatGPT or Gemini or the in Google functions to write their ads, you're all going to be the same. They're going to be very robotic. So make sure you're speaking to the pain points, you're highlighting your USPs, and make sure that you're running videos on ads as well. Like, this is what I mean about, like, we're becoming more content marketers. Spend your time looking at what headlines convert, what videos are convert, what's my hook in this video. So yeah, it's very different from how we used to run ads. But give it a fair chance as well. If you've got the negative lists on there, you've got the data coming in, and it's still spammy, then maybe it's just not right for your business. It's not right for everybody. But I would always recommend taking a small proportion of the overall budget and having a little test environment away from your core campaigns, so you're not destabilize your revenue drivers, and have a little play around with it. And I saw somebody mention it in the channel as well. You will learn more from your failings than what you can read out there, because you'll understand what works personally for your brand and your company. But we love a good little test environment. Yeah.
I love it. That's so good. Thank you for speaking to that, and it's really appreciated. And any conversation around AI comes with a bunch of nuance, so it's. I think you did a remarkable job there. I'm aware when I asked this question that your title is head of PPC, but earlier on you mentioned LinkedIn ads as an example, and I think my hope is from this conversation that from a lot of our conversation, we've illuminated some principles which apply across the various different platforms, whether it's LinkedIn ads, Meta ads, et cetera, et cetera. In your experience, and I will confess, I don't know your experience level in the social media adverts sort of side of things. Is there a nuance that you're aware of or sort of speak to versus some of the things that we've spoken about today? And I don't know is also a financer, because I'm holding my hands up on host duties here.
Yeah, no, I actually started off in paid social ads and then pivoted to Google ads. So it's and that's the same. That's changed so much. Like Meta, Instagram, LinkedIn just seems to be the one that's just trailing behind and not catching up with anybody. That seems to have been the same since forever. But what we'll see, and this is relevant across Google as well, and I do feel like Google are taking a lot of learnings from the paid social side of the advertising platforms as well. Our main testing lever that we will pull from time to time within just all paid media is the creative. So the targeting is getting broader, as with like Meta ads. I was setting up some Meta ads the other day for a client. And again, it's wanting to use AI to write your headlines. And, it's wanting to just have a campaign budget and not a strategy, because you could burn through your budget really quickly, or um, you could spend it slowly, and you could optimize for reach. And it's getting broad. We've got Advantage Plus shopping. It doesn't want you to put any targeting in whatsoever, whatsoever now. And your hand will be forced eventually. You can see the way that it's going, and you'll have more and more taken away. But the one thing that we can control is the messaging and the tracking. So that's just the same across any paid media. Make sure you understand your audience. Your creative can be your targeting as well, because if you're running a testimonial ad, that's like more towards the bottom of well, depending on the versing, it can be more towards the top of the funnel. But it's just that to get, there's just something that they're not quite, submitting that lead or buying that product. And that message is just the thing that, right, okay, I'm ready now. They've answered, like, it's if costs the pain point, they can do Klarna or whatever. And now I'm going to buy the product, or whatever the pain point in. But it's the messaging that's like sometimes is the targeting based on what you're saying in a search ad, a YouTube video, or like an Instagram reel.
Totally. No, I've seen a lot of industry sort of debate about it. Like, I think it speaks a little bit to what Raymond was speaking about a little bit earlier, that sort of trust in the machine to sort of realize what these things are. But it's really, really helpful to hear you speak about it. I'm aware of time, and there's probably one of those questions which is almost impossible to answer, but I guess sits at the nub of this conversation. So far in this conversation, we've mentioned lots of different campaign types. We've mentioned the importance of tracking, the importance of creative. if I was just to sort of say to you in 2026, what's the 20% of actions that sort of has the 80% of results, regardless of where you are in your journey? What are the things that you're optimizing for? And then I'll pick up community Q&A after this.
Yeah, it's a funny question, that one, and I
Yeah.
always struggle with it. But I think the main takeaway or the main thing to understand is that us as advertisers, as marketeers, we need to understand the part that paid media plays in generating conversions. So we need to be moving away from a last click model. We need to be moving away into a more data driven attribution model. And we need to look at the touch points that paid media is having in generating conversions, because a lot of people just, yeah, but I just want to know a 1-day click. What did I get from Google Ads, or what did I get from Meta today? How has Meta directly contributed to my ads? But when we step back and we look at the attribution pathways that we can see in GA4 or other analytical tools, we can see that paid media generally has multiple touch points with email, direct, organic, referrals. It's a multi-touch point. So we need to think more about a 360 model rather than I just got 20 leads today. We need to, what is the value we're actually getting from ads?
I love that. Thank you so much. That's dead helpful. And like, if we ended the session today, we've already been much richer for it, Rebecca. So thank you very much. Let's head back to community questions to make sure that we get to as many as we possibly can. So earlier on in the session, you mentioned server-side tracking as part of the wider mix. So John here says, we've just implemented server-side tracking. It's very early days, but any ideas on how to get the most value from it?
Yes. Don't touch it. Let your campaigns run for a little bit, because if you've not had server-side tracking and then you've set server-side tracking up, your ads need to go back into a sort of learning phase because they're getting more data funneled their way. You'll start to see more like a higher number of conversions coming through from ads eventually. And if you set up the enhanced conversions for leads as well, which is separate to server-side tracking, but is like a bolt-on from server-side tracking, you're getting that value and that revenue goal back in as well. So I would say leave it, and I know it's really hard, 2 to 3 weeks if you can, and then start looking at the data that you're getting in GA4, in your Google Ads account, and that'll allow you to make more informed decisions around keyword strategies, audience strategies, and even platform strategies as well. You might uncover some things that you didn't realize, and PPC might not be for you, but hopefully it is. It sounds like you've invested, so let's hope that it is.
I love that. And, I think to one of your last points there, like, I remember it's a very old example, but I think Tim Ferriss used paid ads to justify or find out what the headline of his book should be, which ended on the 4-hour work week, which was the idea that but that was justified through Google Ads and what got the most clicks through. And I guess to on the points you made there, it sort of helps you explore as well, which is great. Let's head to a question from Michael as we draw the session to a close. So we've got Michael says, we've been running B2B Google Ads campaigns for the past few weeks. While conversions are coming through, a number of leads are spam despite having negative keywords in place. What advice can you give, please? And I guess the really interesting thing about Michael's question for me is like the time frame, which is a few weeks, and stuff around the spam and stuff like that, because we haven't really spoken so much about the time frame needed to prove or disprove whether these things are quote unquote working.
Yeah, so it's a lot of what I've touched on already. So B2B will have a longer sales cycle. And also, I don't know whether these are brand new campaigns, brand new account, no data, brand new tracking, or whether these are campaigns that have been running for a while. If they're new campaigns, new accounts, what we need to have really is 15 conversions within 30 days before we can make an informed decision. So that's what we would, and this is just rule of thumb as well. This is what Google tells us. So we need 15 conversions in 30 days to be able to exit a learning phase. Whether Google is saying you're in a learning phase or not, that's the time frame that Google needs to understand what your direction is, what your strategy, what your goals are. If you're running automated campaigns as well, that can be up to 90 days. So, like, you imagine the conversations I have telling clients, oh, yeah, we need to test for 90 days and just like leave it for a little bit, which is why it's important to have a separate little budget for tests and not have it from your core campaigns as well, because you really do want it to learn. But you can look at the search query reports. I know you said you've got lots of negatives in there, but please check what match they're on, because automatically it just puts them on an exact match. If we've got like reviews, best quote, like free training, things like, and unless you're promoting training, then they want to be on broad match to get rid of all those search queries coming through that are costing you money. You want to make sure as well that you're targeting the high intent keywords if that's your strategy. So we don't want to be like targeting consideration keywords, because they take even longer to convert. But if it is generic spam that you get in, it's just like, somebody's trying to sell you software and it's coming from an ad or people looking for jobs, then there's an issue with the data there. So again, what I've mentioned about putting what a good lead looks like, and like, it's like you're having a conversation back with Google. It can't understand what good is if we're not telling it what's good. And if we're optimized for maximized conversions, it's like, oh, well, I've got 5 conversions, but they could all be like sales, spam, bot messages. We need to make sure that Google understands what a quality lead looks like and what a qualified lead looks like. I hope that helps.
Absolutely. That's so helpful. Rebecca, that's like unbelievable. I just want to pick up on the comment from Ian here, which has been liked by a bunch of folks in the chat, which says, what a star. Rebecca, you're so refreshing in your straightforward, candid and informative answers. Brilliant. Thank you very much, which I think has been super consistent over the past hour. Have you got time for one quick last question? Yeah, it's just come from Kim, and like, I think there will be a lot of people listening in today who have done it from a place of curiosity, because that's the marketing meetup community all over. They're people who want to learn and want to find out more. But quite often, we'll get off the end of this chat and then they'll go, okay, cool, I've learned a bunch, but I still don't think I can necessarily do it for myself. So Kim, again, this might be a softball question, because I mean, there's an obvious answer in yourself, Rebecca. But when it comes to, like, if you wanted someone to manage this type of thing for you, what would you recommend to look for in a partner or a provider? And whether that's like the questions they're asking or like the things that they do, etc. I'd just be curious on that sort of advice. And it's a great question from Kim as well. So thank you, Kim.
Yeah, it is a really good question. And I feel like PPC is a bit of a minefield. It's changed so much recently. And there's not many voices online that are an authority that are talking about modern PPC strategy. So it is really hard. I would recommend always looking for an agency that is a partner, so a Google Ads partner, because what that means is that we get support from Google as well. So we get access to betas. So all the new campaigns that are coming in, Google lets us test them first for our clients. We get access to free ad credits as well. So if you are starting out and you've never had an account before and you open one, you'll get some free ad credit, and we can use that to test and find audiences. But I think I would, if it was me and I was wanting to put my money in somebody else's hands, I would look for somebody that is speaking about, not necessarily lecturing you about how to run Google Ads, but having an open and honest conversation. Somebody that really wants to get to the nitty-gritty of your business as well. They're not just like, if somebody says, I can promise you 50 leads a month, walk away, because how they can promise you 50 leads a month without actually strategizing, understanding a business and scaling, it's like I don't know what they're doing, but yeah, I wouldn't trust them. And you probably know who I'm talking about, those that run businesses. Um, yeah, there's no guaranteed. So somebody that's wanting to dig into your business, like what are your pain points? Who are your customers? What is your sales journey? They should be asking all these questions. And when they're coming to pitch, this is what they should be answering in their pitch as well. Also, if they're offering a free audit, that is generally a good sign. If they're offering you information for free, they generally will know what they're talking about. And it's more of like, yes, you can go away and put all these things into practice that I've told you need to be done, or you can come to us for the expertise. They're not really like, oh, we need to do it all. They're sharing the information because they want to help generally.
That's honestly amazing. Honestly, I promise I'm not being distracted. What I'm trying to do is, I'm just grabbing your LinkedIn profile, Rebecca, to pop in the chat, because basically you've been so generous for the past hour, and really spoken through so much, and in a very wide arena. So like, I just would love it if folks said thank you, because honestly, you've been so amazing. So thank you so much for speaking to everything, Rebecca, and that was a really great last answer as well. So we'll draw it to a close there. I think there's already been some chat in the chat feature about trying to get you back at some point, Rebecca. So you might get a message quite soon from us. But thank you for being so straightforward, so honest, so useful, and thank you everyone as well for your brilliant questions. I really do mean it, and it's not just a line, that these questions make the session so special, as do the chat feature. So it's really appreciated, and we'll never stop taking that part of it for granted either, because 5 years on into doing these sessions, then the thing that makes it special is all of you. So with all of that said, won't be back next week, but we'll be back the following week with a soon to be announced webinar season. But with all that said, thank you all for being incredible. Thank you for spending a bit of time with us. Rebecca, you've been so great today, and I hope you have a really lovely Tuesday. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you very soon. Cheers. Take care.